As the sun dipped below the horizon, the battlefield transformed into a haunting landscape of shadows and uncertainty. The vibrant colors of the day faded into deep blues and purples, casting an eerie calm over the chaos that had filled the air just moments before. Distant gunfire echoed faintly, a reminder of the conflict that raged just beyond the field tents where soldiers prepared for another long night. The ground was uneven and scarred, littered with remnants of battle, broken weapons, discarded gear, and the ghosts of fallen comrades. Soldiers moved cautiously, their faces etched with determination and fear. They gathered in small groups, whispering strategies and sharing quiet laughs to mask their growing anxiety. The tension was palpable, thick as fog, as everyone knew that night brought its own dangers. In the distance, the medic could see his regiment standing alert, rifles cocked and ready for anything. The flickering light from lanterns cast long shadows that danced across their faces, revealing expressions ranging from steely resolve to deep exhaustion. Each man was acutely aware that darkness often hid more than just physical threats. It concealed uncertainties and fears that could unravel even the strongest spirits. As night fell, the medic turned his attention to the field tent. Inside, dim light illuminated a table cluttered with medical supplies. There, he knew he would face a challenge unlike any other. A rebel sharpshooter who needed his help, even as his own comrades braced for potential confrontation outside. Inside the dimly lit field tent, the medic squared his shoulders and took a deep breath. His name was Daniel, a man of quiet strength and tremendous compassion. Growing up in a small town, he always felt drawn to helping others. After volunteering at a local clinic in high school, he decided to pursue a career in medicine. When war came, Daniel saw an opportunity to serve his country and his fellow man. He had enlisted as a medic, where he learned to perform stitches, treat wounds, and manage trauma under immense pressure. Daniel's training had shaped him into a skilled healer, but it was his gentle touch and kind demeanor that truly made him stand out among his peers. Every soldier he treated felt a sense of reassurance from his calm presence. He had a special way of making them feel safe even in the heat of battle. As he prepared for the task ahead, Daniel recalled the faces of those whose lives he had touched. He often reminded himself that it was not just about saving lives but also about preserving hope in the darkest moments. This belief fueled his passion and drove him to face each challenge head-on, even when it meant caring for someone considered an enemy. With steady hands and focused determination, Daniel approached the wounded sharpshooter, recognizing that this moment would test his skills and convictions like never before. He knew that beyond the pain lay a chance for redemption, for both the soldier on his table and himself. The tension in the field tent mounted as Daniel braced himself for what lay ahead. The rebel sharpshooter had been captured just hours earlier after an intense firefight. His regiment had cornered the man in a crumbling building, where he had taken refuge, firing shots with deadly precision. In the chaos that followed, one of Daniel's comrades had successfully subdued the sharpshooter, but not before he sustained serious injuries. As the soldier was brought into the tent, Daniel could see the severity of his condition. Blood soaked the makeshift bandages around the sharpshooter's leg, and his face was pale from pain and shock. The medic quickly assessed the situation. There was a deep gunshot wound in the thigh, and another injury marred his shoulder, likely from shrapnel. Time was of the essence. Each moment that passed increased the risk of infection or worse. The sharpshooter's eyes flickered open, revealing a blend of defiance and fear. He was aware of his surroundings but seemed to struggle to grasp the reality of being treated by an enemy medic. As Daniel prepared his tools, he felt the weight of urgency behind every stitch he would soon make. The sounds of distant gunfire reminded him that outside those tent walls, danger lurked, but inside, his goal was clear: to save a life, even one belonging to someone who had been on the opposite side of the conflict. Outside the field tent, a sense of heightened alertness engulfed Daniel's regiment. The soldiers stood in a tight formation, rifles cocked and ready, their eyes scanning the shadows that crept closer as darkness enveloped the battlefield. Each rustle of leaves or distant sound could signal an approaching enemy, and the tension was heavy in the air. Whispers of strategy and quiet reassurances passed among them, But every soldier knew that the night was unpredictable, filled with unseen dangers. Some exchanged worried glances, their minds racing with thoughts of potential ambushes or surprise attacks. They had seen too much already. Friends lost in an instant, the horror of war closing in around them. In this charged atmosphere, Daniel's colleagues felt torn between their roles as soldiers and their shared duty to protect one another. They were aware that within the tent lay a wounded rebel, and opinions varied on whether treating him was a fool's errand or an act of humanity. Their hearts battled against their instincts. Would they face retaliation if anyone discovered that a medic was tending to an enemy? As gunshots echoed faintly in the distance, each rifleman tightened his grip on his weapon. The sounds reminded them that while Daniel worked to save a life inside, their own lives hinged on being vigilant guardians against threats lurking in the shadows. The weight of responsibility hung over them all, ready to fight, yet yearning for peace, hoping that dawn would bring clarity amidst the chaos of war. As Daniel began treating the sharpshooter, a fierce internal conflict raged within him. He had always believed in his duty as a medic, to save lives and provide care to anyone in need, regardless of their background. Yet now, he found himself grappling with the implications of healing an enemy soldier, a man who had inflicted pain on his comrades and contributed to the chaos around them. With every stitch he made, Daniel recalled the faces of his fellow soldiers, the friends who fought beside him, and those he had lost in battle. Would they see him as a traitor for tending to someone they viewed as an aggressor? In this dark moment, his moral compass spun wildly, leaving him uncertain about what was right. How could he balance his commitment to humanity with the loyalty expected of him as a soldier? Glimpses of the sharpshooter's defiance tempered Daniel's compassion. This was not just another injured soldier. He was a rival fighting for a cause that clashed with everything Daniel stood for. But in that tent, stripped of their uniforms and allegiances, both men were vulnerable. Two human beings caught in the grip of war. Daniel felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him more than ever. He recognized that beyond this act of healing lay an opportunity for understanding and perhaps even reconciliation. Yet he also bore the burden of knowing that treating this man could cost him the trust of his own regiment. The irony was undeniable. By saving an enemy's life, he risked losing the bonds he held dear amongst his comrades. With a steady hand, Daniel prepared to stitch the sharpshooter's wounds, mentally blocking out the chaos of the battlefield outside. He first cleaned the deep gunshot wound in the soldier's thigh, using antiseptic to remove dirt and debris. The sharpshooter winced as the medic worked, but he remained silent, his eyes filled with a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "Just a few stitches," Daniel murmured, trying to offer reassurance. "You're going to be okay." He threaded the needle with careful precision, his heart racing as he focused on each motion, knowing that every stitch mattered. The dim light flickered above him, casting shadows around the tent that felt both comforting and claustrophobic. As he began stitching, Daniel could see the tension in the sharpshooter's jaw. "You're not going to kill me for this?" the soldier rasped, attempting a weak grin despite the pain. Daniel paused for a moment, surprised by the humor in such a dire situation. "Not today," he replied with a slight smile of his own, though uncertainty lingered in his mind. Each stitch pulled tight, and Daniel felt both relief and doubt. He was saving a life but also healing an enemy. The sharpshooter's breathing quickened as Daniel worked on the shrapnel wound on his shoulder. "Why are you helping me?" he asked, genuine curiosity breaking through the bravado. "Because it's my job," Daniel answered simply. "And because every life matters." With those words hanging in the air, he finished the last stitch, feeling a strange sense of connection with the man before him, a shared humanity amidst the violence they both faced. As Daniel finished stitching the last wound, a moment of silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant sounds of the battlefield. The sharpshooter shifted slightly, revealing a vulnerability that had not been there before. "You know," he began, his voice still strained, "I didn't choose this life. I wanted to be an artist." Surprised, Daniel looked up from his work. "An artist? Here." The sharpshooter managed a faint smile. "Yeah, painting landscapes. I grew up in a small village near the mountains. It was peaceful there. Until the war came. Daniel nodded, feeling a pang of empathy for the man who had become an enemy in combat, but was still a person with dreams and aspirations. I understand, he replied. Before enlisting, I was studying medicine because I wanted to help people. But sometimes it feels like I'm just stuck in this nightmare instead. The sharpshooter's expression softened as if he recognized a kindred spirit in Daniel's words. Do you think it will ever end? He asked, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. I hope so, Daniel responded sincerely. But change takes time and courage. We just have to hold on to what we believe in. For a fleeting moment, they were no longer an enemy and a medic. They were two men caught in circumstances beyond their control, sharing dreams and fears under the same dark sky. In that exchange, the walls built by conflict began to crack, revealing their shared humanity amidst the ruins of war. As the conversation between Daniel and the sharpshooter deepened, the outside world suddenly intruded, reminding them of their harsh realities. The distant crack of gunfire shattered the fragile intimacy they had built in that moment, sending a ripple of tension through the tent. The sounds were constant and jarring, punctuating the darkness like an unpredictable heartbeat. Each explosion reverberated through the ground, sending vibrations up through their feet. Daniel's hands felt momentarily unsteady as he recalled that just beyond the tent walls, chaos reigned. Soldiers shouted commands to one another, their voices tinged with urgency and fear. A war cry pierced the night as a group of soldiers rushed past, prepared for whatever dangers lurked in the shadows. The sharpshooter shifted slightly on the table, wincing at the noise. It's hard to think with all this going on, he admitted, his defiance momentarily faltering. I know, Daniel said, keeping his voice low to maintain a sense of calm. But try to focus on your breathing. We'll get through this. For a moment, they both listened closely, the symphony of war playing just outside their sanctuary. It was a stark reminder that while they shared hopes and dreams inside the tent, each blast of artillery and every cry for help brought them back to their conflicting roles in this brutal reality. One man stitching wounds and the other bearing them for a cause he believed in. Their momentary connection seemed even more fragile amid such turmoil, highlighting the contrasts of life and death that surrounded them both. In the dim light of the tent, a powerful bond began to form between Daniel and the sharpshooter. As Daniel worked to save the man who had once been his enemy, an unexpected compassion blossomed in the midst of war. The act of stitching wounds transcended their conflict. It transformed them from combatants into fellow human beings sharing a moment of vulnerability. For the sharpshooter, lying there with his life in the hands of a medic from the opposing side, it was a humbling realization. He felt a mix of gratitude and confusion. Someone who was supposed to see him as an enemy was now treating him as if his life mattered. This act challenged his preconceived notions about the men fighting against him. Perhaps they weren't so different after all. Daniel, too, found himself grappling with the implications of his actions. In saving this soldier, he recognized that compassion could rewrite the story of war. It opened his eyes to the shared humanity that often goes unseen amid the chaos and hatred fostered by conflict. The more he spoke with the sharpshooter and learned about his dreams, the clearer it became that both men wanted the same thing: a future free from violence. This unexpected connection left an indelible mark on both their hearts, a reminder that even in war, compassion could bridge divides and foster understanding. The walls that conflict had erected began to crumble, allowing them to glimpse a shared hope for peace and healing in a world torn apart by violence. As Daniel finished the last stitch and secured the bandage around the sharpshooter's wounds, a wave of exhaustion washed over him, but also a sense of profound clarity. He looked down at the soldier now resting on the table, breathing more steadily, and felt a mixture of relief and weight on his heart. In that moment, Daniel reflected on what it meant to be a healer amidst the horrors of war. His mind wandered to the faces of his fellow soldiers outside, standing vigilant with rifles ready. They were not just warriors. They were brothers who had endured so much together. Yet here he was, tending to an enemy, questioning the very essence of his role in this conflict. Was healing a sign of weakness, or was it the strongest act of defiance against the violence that surrounded them? In the silence that followed, Daniel realized that true healing extended beyond physical wounds. It involved understanding the humanity in every individual, even those on opposing sides. It meant recognizing that beneath their uniforms lay hopes, dreams, and fears, all intertwined in a shared experience of life. As night deepened outside and echoes of distant gunfire faded into a haunting lullaby, Daniel understood that his actions could ripple far beyond this tent. He had chosen compassion over enmity, and in doing so, he had taken a small step toward peace. Not just for himself or this sharpshooter, but for everyone caught in the crossfire of war. In that dark moment, he found purpose. He was not just a medic but a guardian of hope in a world desperately in need of it.